Hi, today we're going to go through some graphing exercises using the iPad on Google Sheets. The first step would be opening your data file, and for this exercise we're going to use the Life Science Practice Graphing Google Sheet. As you can see at the bottom, there are a couple different options. We'll be going over the pie chart, bar graph, line graph, and scatter plot. For these exercises, we'll be using some made-up data to illustrate the different types of graphs. In Google Sheets, it's important to understand the difference between rows and columns. Rows are horizontal and they are numbered 1 through whatever number, and the columns are labeled letters A through Z or whatever you want to go to. So it's important to start by selecting the row with the title of whatever variable you're going to work on. I'll be selecting two different columns of data, and the first row will be our axis labels. After selecting the data that you want to graph, you will go to the top right corner and you will click on the plus symbol. That will give you the option to select the chart that you want. From here, you will see a menu of different types of charts and graphs that you can add. The first one that we are going to be looking at is the pie chart, so we will be looking at one of 3 different pie options. There are a couple different ones we could choose, but I'm going to choose the simplest one just for this example. After selecting the chart that you want, you can just hit the back arrow to go back to the other options. The next thing we want to look at is the legend, and this will give us some options on where we want to put some of the details of the chart. You can choose right, top, left, but for this one I know the labeled is the best. Next, you will have to change the default title. It will have created the title based on what was in your data, but you will have to select the word chart title and type in a new, more appropriate title. You can do that and hit update title when you are done. Finally, there is one more option, the color option. So if you want to play around with the colors and make it look aesthetically pleasing, you can do that. So if you select the word color, you should have plenty of options to change the different colors. I changed blue just for this example. Although you can't see the legend right now, it will show up when you finalize your graph, and to do that you click on the check mark in the upper left hand button. So if you click on that, it will show you your graph, which looks amazing. And if you've created some graphs by hand, you will have known you've just saved yourself a lot of time and created a wonderful graph. You can play around by resizing and moving it around on the sheet, but for this exercise, just place it where it says insert the pie chart of this data here. That pretty much wraps up the pie chart. Now you can click the back button and we can go on to the bar graph. The data from the bar graph should look somewhat familiar to you. It is measuring the height of different plants throughout the weeks, and there's one control plant and one experimental plant, and they're measured in centimeters as indicated inside the parentheses. Now, what you need to know about sheets is the first column will always be assumed to be the x-axis, so that's the independent variable, in our case the weeks. The next column and the columns after that, so B and C, will both be assumed to be the y-axis or the dependent variable. So if we select all of the data, it will assume we are graphing 2 different bars. This should make a little bit more sense after trying it on your own, and you can experiment about this and just keep hitting undo if you make any mistakes. Now let's select the data and create a bar chart. So first we're going to select row A, B, and then C. So now we have all of the data selected. Hit the plus button in the upper right hand corner, and ta-da, we have a graph. Again, there's many different options, but we will choose the default bar graph. You can see You can make it horizontal or vertical. After selecting the type of graph, we can then adjust the other options, such as the legend, which I'm putting at the bottom in this case, the title of both the chart and the different axes. I'm going to leave that blank and then just show you how to change the vertical axis. Remember, it's common to put your units in parentheses. Finally, you can click the back arrow again and get to other options such as everyone's favorite, the color. Again, you want to choose pretty neutral colors so your graph looks aesthetically pleasing. After you've clicked insert, your bar graph will appear. It looks nice. You can feel free to go back and adjust any of the options that you've previously seen, but you can resize the chart and put it where it says insert the bar chart here. After you've done that, I'm going to show you one cool feature about this graph. You're allowed to change the data and it will automatically adjust in the graph. So here I'm changing the height of 29 centimeters to 40 centimeters, and you will see in the graph, once I've clicked OK, that it made that adjustment. So that's a really nice feature. When you've realized you've made a mistake, you don't have to go through and do the whole thing over again. Now I've selected line graph at the bottom, and we will do another type of graph. In this situation, I've shown you an example where one of the experimental plants died and they've had to start a second experimental plant. So in this graph, we're going to have 3 total lines. Again, the first column, column A, will be considered the dependent variable and it will go along the x-axis. And columns B, C, and D will all be graphed on the y-axis. And again, once we've selected all the data, I think you will see what we mean. So I'm going to start by selecting the age of the plant data. And then go all the way over, select the data, hit the Insert Chart button, and you will see we have the line graph. And again, there's a couple different options for line graph. You can have smooth or rough, and then you can change the rest of the options. Now, some of you might notice there's no axis labels, and that's because when I selected the data, I did not select them. You can manually change them right now by going to the legend and change the chart title, the horizontal, and the vertical axis title. But I'm going to show you another way to go back and do this. Because this process is very quick, we can just start over and reselect the data. So I'm going to show you that example. So I'm going to delete this chart and then reselect the data, but in this time I will select row 3, which includes the axis labels. Again, I'll hit the plus button to create a new chart, and you can see now they're properly labeled. Again, I'm just inserting the graph. Doesn't fit very well on the iPad, so I'll just insert it over the data, which is, again, an okay thing to do. And I will move on to the next type, which is the scatter plot. Scatter plot's going to work the same. I'm going to select all of the data and hit the Insert Chart button. And this time it didn't automatically select the right one, so I'm going to the scatter plot. In this example, you will only see dots, and those represent all of the different data points. And in this one, we will be looking for trends in the data. You can make the adjustments like the color of the dot if you'd like, but otherwise you'll have to manually draw a line of best fit, and that will be a different topic for a later day. If you can insert the scatter plot here, we have now completed this exercise. You have just graphed 4 different types of charts. Congratulations, you are well on your way to becoming a graphing master.